when you fear. There's no easy way to hear. And all the memories you love to bring, with all the things that you hate to scream. So tell me, hollow on the inside, there's no trying to hide from this monster inside me. So if you try to criticize me like the world defines me, image of what I have become.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Browns Beat Podcast. Finally, Derek, finally, we are relieved of the shackles that bear us, that ground us to this earth. We have ate a dub, and we're flying high. It feels great. Eating dubs, baby, eating dubs. Let's go.
I can do it, right? Jeez.
Yeah, same here. I can't do that shit. Anyways, Derek, wow. What a football game. And there is so much to break down with this game. There's so much in terms of what we saw on the field, what is potentially going to happen for this team's future, and just the emotional side of everything. Like, this game had so much attached to it, Derek. So, I cannot wait to break all this down with you. However, we are going to start on a little bit more of a somber note. We do have a couple of topics that, we do want to get to first before we get into the excitement of this game. So let's start with that. So first is going to be the Browns announced yesterday on Saturday that Jim Donovan had passed away. Jim Donovan, man, some of my favorite memories as a Cleveland Browns fan were after games or after big moments during games. I would scramble to the Cleveland Browns app and I would just rewind until I got Jim Donovan's voice commentating over an exciting moment. And, it was like I was like kicking my feet like with excitement, because it's like it was almost like I was just reliving that moment all over again for the first time. And that for me, I will always cherish, and I'll always love and appreciate everything that Jim Donovan was able to add to my fandom of the Cleveland Browns, this team that I love so much. So, a great person. Ask anybody in that Browns organization, and they all say the same. He was such a wonderful man. And it's so tragic that he passed away. But yeah, he will absolutely be missed, sincerely, not only just by myself, but I'm sure all of Browns fans all around the world.
Yeah, it was just absolutely heartbreaking news. Jim battled cancer, and it went away, came back. And, unfortunately, Jim passes away at the, young age of 68 years old. Just absolutely heartbreaking. And I completely agree with everything you said. Jim was one of a kind, and there are key moments just even recently within this past few years that are going to go on throughout Browns history forever. And, Jim Donovan was, and forever will be the voice of the Cleveland Browns. And he became the voice of the Browns when we moved back in 1999. And, Tristan, for all the bad, for all the suffering that this team has brought throughout the years, Jim Donovan was the epitome of love and support of your team. Like, I genuinely can't remember a moment where Jim was hating on the team or, being negative. Obviously, there's not a lot of good at points throughout his tenure, but, there was always that love and that hope in his voice. And we were talking about it before we hit record, but the one of the Browns going to the playoffs. And you had said it, all that's missing now is all of y'all, or all of you. And man, it's just, for me, Tristan, it's heartbreaking because he's so beloved. And, Jim was somebody that, like, I would have loved to meet and loved to shake his hand. Just because of the guy that he is, first of all, but second of all, the importance that he carries throughout Browns history. It's absolutely heartbreaking. You can't say any more. Like, this is a huge hole left in all of us, left in the organization, and Jim will never be forgotten. That is absolutely for sure. Obviously praying for the family and, the community as a whole. But Tristan, for me, I think the Cleveland Browns owe Jim Donovan nothing more than let's turn this thing around and let's turn this franchise into the best that it can be. The only last thing I will say is, in the new stadium, I want the press box to be the Jim Donovan press box. I think you absolutely need to memorialize him, do something for him, for the family, just to show how much of a important piece to this team, to this franchise that he was. So, yeah, absolutely gut-wrenching, heartbreaking, and it's sad, but, cherish the ones you love while they're here. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to kind of reiterate what you said, prayers out to his family, to his loved ones, to the ones that were closest to him. They're certainly going to be going through a really, really hard time. And absolutely, you said it absolutely perfectly. The Browns, I think what they have done so far to commemorate his honor has been absolutely perfect. The dedication that they've shown to him, not only just on social media, but like during the broadcast as well, some other aspects as well, some other things that they were doing, the letter that they wrote as well, Jimmy and D Haslam, I thought was really, really nice. You're absolutely right. The broadcast booth in the new stadium needs to be the Jim Donovan booth, 100%. And I'd even go a step further. He should be in the Ring of Honor. I mean, You want to talk about somebody that embodied the Cleveland Browns. Like, what are these fans like? I can point to Jim Donovan, the excitement that he has, the optimism, just the ability to just have such intense emotion, and just have some love for this team, some deep love for this team. That's something that, we're truly gonna miss in that broadcast booth. So, I can absolutely say it's been a pleasure to be a Browns fan while Jim Donovan has been calling our games. It's been nothing short of a blessing. So, I wanted to say all that. But any final words in regards to Jim Donovan before we move on?
No, I think about all the people in this community who have unfortunately left us. I think about Les Levine. I used to watch him years ago on his show. I think I called in a couple times actually. Obviously Jim, and then I had a buddy, and I haven't brought him up in forever, but I had a buddy many years ago who started out doing the same stuff of just Cleveland media. Was close with him, and then he unfortunately lost his life at a very young age. And I think about, Tristan, the moments that we as fans get to experience, and how much love and care we put into this team. And it's hard thinking about the ones that have gone on. And for me, more than anything, I want this team to give what this fan base deserves, and that's a consistent winning football team. You know, for Jim, for Les, for everybody, like everybody in this community. You know, and I don't want to dive into a discussion of the whole, you know, are we ever in our lifetime going to see it? But unfortunately for the fans and the, you know, members in this community who don't, like, what we owe them is to do that. And so, yeah, just it's heartbreaking. It's very sad for sure, but again, all we can do is win. All we can do is put the best product, the best on the field in honor of them. So
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, with that being said, Jim Donovan, rest in peace, and may you forever be remembered by Cleveland Browns and their fans. By the Cleveland Browns and their fans. So before we get into the game, the excitement of the game, there are a couple of other things I wanted to talk about while we were still kind of in this kind of somber type mood. In particular, you know, one particular injury, JOK, really scary injury. You saw him get hit, you saw him go down, you saw him not move, and you saw him get carted off with his neck immobilized. So that was incredibly scary. Luckily, it's been reported by multiple sources. He has movement in all of his extremities, so thank you for that. Absolutely could have been much worse, was really scary at the time. Certainly hope he's able to recover easily and quickly, and, you know, essentially be healthy. You know, that's the big hope for him. And then the other guy I wanted to talk about, Denzel Ward, getting diagnosed with his 6th concussion. You know, it's such a tough conversation with him. But let's start with JOK. Derek, we were talking a little bit about the hit and the play before you hopped on. What were your thoughts on that play and that whole situation?
Yeah, I mean, the game of football it's war. That's what it is, and it was just a simple JOK trying to make a play on a man who is a giant in Derrick Henry and a freak at his position, and, you know, he comes in for the tackle and his head goes right into Derrick Henry's shoulder and, you know, arm, and it was scary. For sure it was scary. You know, for me, and I've said this many times because it usually is the case, if I'm not there at the game, I'm at work, and I didn't really get to see the whole thing. So what I did see was after JOK gave the thumbs up and was being carted out. And also, just kind of off topic, if you're in the Columbus area, the game wasn't even shown on TV, so I was watching it on my phone, so it was kind of hard to see what all was going on. But yeah, by the time I saw it, I did see him have some movement, so that gave me a lot more optimism and hope as far as the severity of it goes. But yeah, it's definitely scary. It's definitely scary how in the same game of football, and I don't say this in a joking manner, but you can have somebody like Grant Delpit absolutely lay a monster hit on the same guy, and then you can have somebody else who's significantly bigger. You know, you get hit the wrong way and you have an injury like that. So, JOK being in much better, being in good condition, and, you know, everything believed to be okay is amazing. Thank God for that. But definitely a scary moment. You know, because you said it, like, we've seen it happen on the field. It happened in Pittsburgh many years ago. Like, it's football. It's what it is. It's football. So, but yeah. Did you want me to talk about Denzel too, or you want to talk about Denzel?
Yeah. Why don't you give me your thoughts on Denzel, and then I'll kind of give my thoughts as well.
Yeah. So with Denzel, it was one of those things that you hear about it and it's just like, oh my gosh, man. Like, at what point? Like, it's the same thing we talk about with Tua. like how many shots to the head are we going to be able to keep getting up and moving on from? I've said it before. I've had 5 concussions. I have problems in certain areas with lights and stuff like that. Like it just, and you grow to live with it. But Denzel Ward is still an NFL player. He's still taking these sorts of hits. We just saw it with Chris Olave today. Same thing, coming off of concussion, getting smoked in the head. Like this, it's a real worry. And who am I? I'm not going to tell Denzel Ward what he should or should not do. But for me, it really sucks because you have a guy, and I don't just say this because of the on-the-field stuff, but it sucks for him when you have a corner who has quietly, Tristan, been one of, if not the best corners in the National Football League this year. Like, he is playing at a high, high level. And for him to sustain another injury in an area where the science and opinions on the matter is very diverse and disputed and debated about, it's at the end of the day, it's on him. It's on Denzel, what he wants to do with, the rest of his life and his career. But, it definitely sucks for sure. But
Yeah. And, I think you said it. I mean, he's been playing the best football of his career this year. Like, that's been something that's been lost among the whole chaos of the Browns season was Denzel Ward has been one of, if not the best corners in football this year, 100%. Like, he's playing at an all-pro level, and it's so tough because concussions aren't something that you can directly control yourself. There's no, one thing that you can do to train your body to handle concussion and prevent a concussion. They just happen, right? Certainly in football, you can manage the way that you tackle, right? Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, it's football. Stuff just can happen. So, it's sad. It sucks that he got another concussion. But I think at this point, the only thing that we can do is we can just hope and pray for the best for him and his health and his family as well. Hopefully, whatever's going on, hopefully that not only he but his family have the strength to deal with all this stuff and are able to navigate this in the way that they feel is best, because at the end of the day, those are the people that are going to know him best and know what's best for him. So that's really all I have to say in terms of that with Denzel. He's been phenomenal this year, but yeah, absolutely, I'm wishing the best for him, and I really, really hope I really hope he's okay with this, because when you get up there with concussion numbers, I mean, for me, I've had probably about 4 or 5 concussions myself. To this day, I struggle with migraines. I usually get them at least once a month. Sometimes I go through phases where it's once a week. And then there are also certain things that I just struggle with. Like, I struggle with spelling. I used to never have issues with spelling, and I'm flipping letters and all this other stuff when I'm I just stuff that I'm having to deal with. So I can only imagine what he and his family are going through. Hopefully everything's okay there, and I wish them the best moving forward. Any final thoughts before we kind of move on to the game?
Let's talk about some happy stuff, dude. Because this
let's change the note. Let's
this
change
is
the
a
tone.
celebrational day, baby.
It is, and let's start with the man that's behind it all.
Mm-hmm.
We're eating dubs, baby. Jameis Winston. Oh my goodness, Derek.
Mm-hmm.
Where do we even start with this? It's just what do we even say? I mean, I can't even say I'm shocked.
Whose fault is it? That's what I would like to ask.
Yes.
Whose fault is
Whose
it?
fault is it that this didn't happen sooner?
Whose fault is it?
That this didn't happen sooner, right? And that's certainly an angle of this that we'll get to. But man, Jameis Winston today was just unbelievable. Unbelievable, the levels of quarterback play. Yeah. Derek, I'll let you go into it first because I know you've got all the stats and I know you've got everything that you want to talk about all lined up and organized. I'm all over the board. So, Derek, talk to me, man. Jameis Winston in today's ball game.
This is the day the Lord has made, and we will rejoice and be glad in it. And boy, oh boy, we were rejoicing today because that man went out on that football field today and absolutely lit it up. Jameis Winston, 27 of 41, 334, 3 touchdowns. Now, it is noted, or I should say it should be noted, that Jameis Winston very easily could have thrown a lot of picks today. But you know what? He did not. He did not. And you can say what you want. You know, you can say whatever. I would like to think old Jimmy Donovan had a hand from heaven in knocking some of those balls out because this was quite a special day. And Tristan, for me, we watched the film, and there's a lot of people who say, oh, turn on the film. I don't know about you, but for me, I like to slow it down frame for frame. And when we've done that throughout the course of this season, what we've seen is guys are open. A lot of the pressure and the issues on the offensive line, while they are there, they are self-induced by the quarterback. And the Browns just simply don't pass downfield. And it doesn't mean we can't, because guess what? Today, we had 4 receivers over 60 yards. Over 60 yards. And a lot of that was the downfield passing game. That's not because we couldn't do it before. That's not because of a game plan change, which we will get into because there was a change there. It was because we had a quarterback who, for whatever reason, mentally could not handle taking risks, could not throw downfield. Jameis comes in there. He doesn't care. He could care less if he's being risky. And he's just slinging it. And while he could have had some picks, he didn't. And Tristan, this was the first 200-plus passing game all year for the Browns. This is the first 20-point-plus passing, or 20.
I'm going to correct you. We haven't had a 200-yard passing game yet.
You're right.
We've only had 100s and 300s.
Yep. You're right.
We haven't had a 200-yard passing game yet.
Oh, man. It's like, it is absolute insanity when you put it into perspective. And boy, do I have a stat for you, Tristan. Are you ready for this one? Completions on 15-plus yard throws downfield. Okay. Through the season, Deshaun Watson has had 9. Today, Jameis Winston, 8. So, I mean, listen, man, I'm not trying to hate on Deshaun Watson. I hope he recovers. I hope he has a speedy recovery. Wish him nothing but the best. But with all due respect, if you were somebody who consistently stated that Deshaun Watson was not the problem, I'm going to need you to go to your bathroom right now, turn on the light, and look yourself in the mirror for a minimum of 5 minutes. I need 5 minutes of some self-reflection. And I want you to think about the clown makeup that you put on every morning, your red nose, your red paint, and I want you to think about the work that you have done carrying the history of number 4 from 4 or 5 years ago and trying to convince yourself day in and day out that he was not the problem. Because I watched a quarterback today, Tristan, who has bounced around the NFL. Obviously, he has the talent. But I watched him come into an offense that could not do anything. Literally historically bad offense throughout the first weeks of the season. And he comes in and throws 334, 3 touchdowns. So please explain to me how it's not Deshaun Watson's fault. And I'm not trying to beat a dead horse while he's down. But man, it feels good. It feels good to finally have these idiots have to eat their words. And I don't want to keep rambling. because I know we're going to talk about the receivers at some point in this podcast. But Tristan, last thing I want to say before I send it over to you. Do you notice today how the ball was being spread around? Do you notice how we didn't have one read plays and how you had a quarterback who, yet while getting the ball out quickly, progressed through his reads, made tight passes, or I should say completed passes in tight windows, took risks, took shots, let his playmakers do the best that they could. Tristan, something called an Elijah Moore had 8 receptions, 85 yards today. When's the last time we've seen Elijah have a game like that? I mean,
Yeah.
come on, man.
I hear you, man. I hear you. And we'll get to those receivers. Here's where I'll start with this, okay? Because I think that the way you finished it was a good way for me to kind of bridge it. I'm going to address those who still held out hope for Watson. Certainly, I was one of those until the Washington game. The Washington game, that was it. That was it for me. I was out after that. Some arguments I'm seeing going around was the offensive play calling, right? It was much better, right? The switch from Stefanski to Dorsey was what allowed this offense to flourish, and that is why the offense looked better today. Derek, do me a favor. Forget the play callers' names. Let's just roll the tape of that Thursday night football game against the Jets and this game. Mm-hmm. Let's roll them side by side, and you tell me what the differences were. This was a cut and dry, the same thing, word for word, bar for bar, the same offense that we were running last year, at the end of last year, with Joe Flacco. This is the same offense. It's running the football, right? It's play action, a lot of play action, and just chucking the ball deep, right? Being aggressive. That's what this football team is, right? That's what this football team is now, and that's what it's going to be the rest of the season. And this is the exact offense that Kevin Stefanski rolled out last year. So there's nothing that's changed there, right? That's the first argument. The second argument I've been hearing is, well, the offensive line played a lot better, right? The offensive line play was so much better. Fair enough, right? Fair enough, which, listen, we will get to the offensive line because there was a very, very good move that was risky coming into it, but ended up paying off and looking really good. We'll get into it.
Stevie Wills was not on the field. That's all I want to say.
But here's two arguments that I'll throw back at you for anybody that's saying, well, the offensive line was better today, so that's why Winston looked good and Watson would have looked the same, right? There's two things. Number one, Jameis Winston was getting the ball out quick, right? There certainly were plays where he was holding on to the football, letting the play develop downfield. But the reason why we were able to do that was because we didn't have a quarterback abandoning the pocket when it was clean, and he stuck in there, and his offensive linemen didn't have to worry about the quarterback moving and losing their leverage, right? And that certainly helped clean some stuff up for sure. But the big thing is with Jameis Winston today, Derek, was like there was the threat of being able to complete a deep ball, which he did multiple times in this game, which opened up a lot more of the short stuff. And like it made the checkdowns more effective, right? And that's where the biggest difference is between Jameis Winston and Deshaun Watson, because Jameis Winston's able to get the ball down deep down the field, and it's able to be very, very effective. Now with Jameis Winston, you're gonna get that turnover-worthy play percentage to be higher, right? But at the same time, the good that he can give you, absolutely, in our situation, that definitely outweighs the negatives, because this defense, which we'll get into that as well, it's good enough to make up for those mistakes, right? And erase those mistakes. This offensive line, the biggest reason why it played better was because the quarterback stayed in the pocket, didn't run into pressure, and also when the play was designed for a short, quick read, he made a short, quick read, and he got the ball out. I thought all around, Jameis Winston helped the offensive line tremendously today, and I think that something that we'll also get into when we talk about the play calling switch, there was also another huge factor into why this offensive line played better today, because there's a lot to get into with that. But the biggest thing with this, right? Obviously, Jameis Winston balled out today. Yes, he absolutely. You could argue, like, if you're on the defending Watson side of it, right? You could argue, well, if Kyle Hamilton didn't drop that pick, would we really care? The answer is still yes, because it was a very, very exciting and fun game. All right, and I literally going into this game, I was saying to my friends, I do not care if we lose. I just want to feel something when the offense is on the field. Just something. Give me something. And I got more than something today, Derek. I got everything. Oh my gosh, Derek. But
you
so
went
the
to the Winston buffet today. You got
Yes.
great. You got risky. You got
Bro.
my gosh, what was that? You got
Bro, let me customize a jersey. Call me Big Back, bro. I got filled on that Winston buffet today, okay? Listen. Hey, yo, that actually sounds terrible. Pause. All right. Anyways.
and you're getting clipped.
I'm getting clipped. Damn it. All right. Anyways, so let's. Oh no! I didn't realize. Anyways, let's just move on.
Say hello to the TikTok audience, will you?
Oh, hi TikTok. Anyways, but there is no argument for Deshaun Watson at this point. It's clear it doesn't work. We operate best when we're able to just throw the football deep. We're able to threaten. There, you're gonna make me laugh, man. Stop. Oh man. All right. But
He said hello, TikTok.
Oh man, that's so bad. Oh, anyways, let's talk. Let's keep talking about this. So, there's just no argument for Watson at this point. There is none. Certainly, other aspects of the team played a lot better today, but a lot of that was because of Jameis Winston, and you would be doing a great disservice to him and what he was able to do today by not highlighting that. And I just think that, when I look at Derek, you can't laugh, bro. You're gonna make me laugh. You can't do this, man. Get it? Stop. All right. Winston. All right. So, yeah, there's just no more argument for Deshaun Watson. I'll leave it there. Right. The receivers, the other argument was that the receivers played a lot better today, which was why Winston looked so good and they were actually catching the ball and all that stuff. Like, no, that's not why. It's because just Jameis Winston was able to actually hit a deep ball, was able to be threatening down the field. It allowed more space for those intermediate and short routes, and we were able to get a lot more from that. So that's what the biggest change was today. And this all goes on to Jameis Winston's shoulders. He did a fantastic job today. He deserves all the credit for that. And this needs to be a template for what type of quarterback are we going to look for as the next quarterback. I will say this right here, right now. If Jameis Winston keeps this up throughout the rest of the year, you're extending him, right? You're extending him. You're keeping him here in Cleveland for at least another couple years, right? At least.
Do we want to dive into this now? Because, boy, I got something to say on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been kind of yapping for a little while now, so yeah, I'll pass this back to you, Jameis. Jesus, I'm all over the place. I was looking at Jameis's name on my phone and I just said it. But I'll pass this back to you, Derek. What were your talk to me about that aspect of Jameis today? Where do we go forward from here?
I think this team's future at the quarterback position is very easily laid out. And that is all riding on if this type of quarterback play continues. If Jameis comes out, and I'm not saying puts up 300 yards by any means every game, but I'm saying if Jameis Winston comes out and gives you 200 plus passing, 1 to 2 touchdowns, and even a pick. Like, if he can come out and play competent quarterback play, he played great today. It wasn't even just competent. It wasn't just good. It was great. If he can put a good to solid performance at quarterback for you from here on out, and we're not going to win every game. I had this discussion, before I came in here to do this. We were talking about the future. We're not going to win every game. We're going to win some games. We're going to win a couple more. Do I think we're going to put ourselves in the drafting in the 20s? No. Do I think we're going to put ourselves into drafting in the 15s? No. I think we're still going to have a top 10 pick. I would say at worst, as far as draft selection wise, I think we're going to be hovering around 10. I think the path is laid out easily, Tristan. I think if Jameis Winston plays the way he did today or around this way, you absolutely learn from your mistake you made with Joe Flacco. You extend Jameis Winston. And this is just my opinion. You take your quarterback. I don't care how high. I don't care who. You take the guy that you believe is this team's future. You draft him, and you have a great mentor in Jameis Winston. You have a guy who is a solidified leader. This team was in hell, Tristan, and you had a guy who was a solidified leader even through that hell as the backup, who comes in and has a great game. If this is the Jameis Winston that we're looking at, I'm not saying it's totally off the table that he can be the starting quarterback for the future, but what I'm saying for sure is you have your guy. You have your bridge guy, whether if that means sit a whole year, whether if that mean half a season next year, whether if that mean a couple games. Who knows? When the time is right, the time is right. And in my opinion, Tristan, I mean, we're going to dive into it as time goes on who the quarterback should be for the Browns. And my opinion has changed a little bit on some of these guys. But nevertheless, point being, the Browns, I think, have been gifted a second chance. You've been gifted a second chance and the opportunity to do what you should have done last year and have a guy who plays well for you come in. And what you've been mentioning all the time, Tristan, of the Patrick Mahomes route, the Jordan Love route, the Browns hypothetically, if need be, if all goes well, could be in that spot where you take a guy who maybe is a little bit reckless, and a lot of these guys are in this draft, and you could sit them and develop them and learn and grow within the offense. Tristan, I think that's the path we're on. And I don't want to go too far deep into the offensive line, but I'll just say this right now. If this left tackle play continues with DeJuan Jones, left tackle's figured out. Like, DeJuan Jones is your left tackle for the future. Right tackle with Jack, there's some questions there, and what do we do there? Okay, fair enough. But as far as we got to get a left tackle in the first round, in my opinion, those discussions at the time being, we set them aside. Because for me, Tristan, I'm looking at it, and I know there's a lot of people who are going to say, okay, well, then you go receiver, then you go right tackle, then you go whatever. Some people want to go running back. Like, there's a lot of different directions you could go. However, let's be realistic, Tristan. And this is what I'm talking about. I said there's a chance that this team is a 10-plus win team next year. Why did I say that? And why did you agree with me? What we did today is the reason. And maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just optimism. We're probably not going to have a pick this high for a couple years. Just me, just my opinion. Way too early to say that. Take your quarterback. Take your quarterback. I don't care if it's Cam Ward, Shador. I don't care if it's Milroe, Al, or whoever, right? And I certainly have opinions on all these guys. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying draft those guys. But whoever the Browns and whoever Stefanski, Barry look at and say, that's our guy. That's our guy. Go get your guy. You have the luxury of having somebody that can sit ahead of them and not just be a good player on the field for you, but also off the field. What it looks like to be a leader, what it looks like to be a mentor. Dude.
Somebody just take the pressure off of a rookie quarterback's shoulders.
Yeah.
And just let him learn and mold and develop. Like, yeah, I'm with you, man. I'm with you all the way. And I'll let you finish your thought unless if you were all done. But
no,
yeah,
the only other thing I wanted to say, and this might be a potential foreshadow into a future discussion, is Tristan, I got a interesting question for you. Who would you say was the last best consistent quarterback for the Cleveland Browns?
The last best consistent quarterback?
Mm-hmm. Think old.
I mean, well, Joe Flacco, but I mean, I don't know if you would consider that, because you knew what you were getting from him every game. And that was very consistent. As far as who is the best consistent quarterback, oh geez, I'm struggling.
I'm gonna give you a hint. Michael Cozy has a sign with this man's name on it.
I'm losing.
Do you not know that one?
I might not. I'm losing it. So you got to remember, I became a Brownies fan. First year of Hugh Jackson was my first year, and I know quite a bit of Browns history. I don't know especially the.
This is the only hint I'll give you, and then I'll just straight up tell you.
Mm-hmm.
You matter.
You matter.
Bernie Kosar.
Bernie. Okay. All right. Well, I obviously know Bernie, but like
Yeah.
I wasn't like. It wasn't ringing. If you would have said Cardiac Kids, I would have said, oh, Bernie,
Okay.
I got it. You know.
So, let me ask you, Tristan. Let me just throw it out there. Where did Bernie go to college?
Bernie Kosar. He went to college. Oh my goodness. It was it University of Miami? Right? Are you about to make a Cam Ward pitch? Oh, all right.
I'm just saying.
All right.
We'll leave it at that.
Okay. Well, here's what I'll say to all that, right? So, first things first. Derek, you said a rough estimate of where we're picking. If Jameis Winston keeps this up throughout the end of the year, who knows where we'll be. We just beat one of, if not the best teams in football, and we got 3 touchdowns and 300 yards. Now, albeit probably should have had a couple picks in there, right? But I expect him to actually like kind of phase that out a little bit more as the season goes on. Those really bad turnover-worthy plays, especially that one throw to Elijah Moore, that I see is just rust, right? Like, Jameis Winston can hit that throw, and we see that, and we've seen it this game. He can hit that throw. He clearly overthrew it just because it was a high like energy moment. Like, I'm trying to think of the right word, but you know, and it's clear he just put too much on the football. Adrenaline. His adrenaline was running high. He just put too much on the football, right? And I expect as he plays a little bit more these next couple of weeks, that's going to go away. The big thing for me is a margin of 2. I need a margin of 2. If you're throwing 2 touchdowns, you can't throw any picks, right? If you're throwing 4 touchdowns, you can throw 2 picks, right? I need that margin of 2. I need that 14-point margin because this defense can make up for that. That this defense can make up for. If you're throwing 4 touchdowns, 3 picks, oh, now you're getting a little bit, you know, now that's a bit worrisome, right? But the margin of 2, that's what I'm saying with Jameis Winston here. If he can keep it to that, we're fine. The other thing I'll say is, Derek, if he's able to keep this up, who knows what we're going to do. We play the Chargers next, and the Chargers cannot overlook them. They are a good football team. Jim Harbaugh has come in there. He's instilled the run.
Boo that man when he comes into Cleveland. Boo that man.
But he's installed the run really, really well. That offensive line, he's renovated, and it looks great. And then obviously you've got Justin Herbert, and that defense is playing well. I mean, the Chargers are almost like a replica of the Ravens. like the Harbaugh Renaissance replicas. Like that's what this is, right? And you can see like, okay, yeah, I see that. Like as far as like, you know, they're just so similar, and no wonder why J.K. Dobbins is thriving in LA, because it's a Baltimore style system. So yeah, it's regardless, right? It's not going to be an easy game, but again, if you repeat the performance, that you got from your quarterback in that game, I'm very confident and comfortable saying that we would win. And then we got a bye, and then we got the Saints, and they're not looking hot right now. Obviously, Derek Carr is going to come back, so we'll see what that looks like. But, you know, that would be our next opponent. And then after that, now you're talking Pittsburgh Steelers, and that's always a coin flip. But my point is this, is if he plays at this level, don't put a ceiling on where this team can go, right? At the end of the day, and I hate to get too far ahead of myself here, but I feel like it's not crazy to say this. If this team can get a ticket to the dance, who knows? Who knows? That's what I'm saying. Now, the road to there, it's incredibly hard. But again, we just beat one of the best teams in football, and it was Jameis Winston's first start. So the play that we've been getting from some of these guys, and we'll talk about it, if we get 2 more losses, I'll call the season quits. But I've got some optimism. I gotta be honest here. I got some optimism. I'm not ready to quit yet, because I've seen this team have some miracles before, and I didn't expect that when we traded Amari Cooper, and this is what it comes down to, I didn't expect that when we traded Amari Cooper, we'd get better production from our receivers. I was not expecting that. And that's what we've gotten.
But there's a reason.
Yes, but there's also another reason, right? There's two sides to that coin. But regardless, this football team, I've got a small little candle in a dark basement, and that's my hope. That's my hope, and unfortunately, it's still there. I said a couple weeks ago, you know, we had to pull the trigger because we had one more bullet in the chamber. We pulled our trigger. So far, I don't know, Derek. It looks like we're 200 yards out, but it looks like it's hitting the target. So, you know, like that's I know it sounds crazy to say this right now, but this football team that we saw today, this was the football team we saw last year. This was that football team. And that football team I would never count out. And so that's the same mentality I'm going to have towards this one. So it sounds crazy to say it. It does. And it is. I'll probably come back and look at this and say, like, oh, Tristan, you idiot, you gullible person. Like, you really thought. But, you know, I don't care. Right now, it feels like a possibility. And yeah, man, it's so crazy. It's just so crazy. And the only thing, and I was telling you this before we started recording, if we lose and we've got an early draft pick, okay, fine, I'll live with that. If we win a lot of football games, we end up squeaking into the playoffs, I'll be great with that. Mm-hmm. What I'll be the most upset with is if we finish 1 or 2 games out and we're looking back and we're saying, man, if only we would have switched quarterbacks after the Washington game. We could have beaten the Eagles. We could have beaten the Bengals. Yeah. What does it look like then? Right? That's the only thing that scares me about the remainder of this season, is that what if, right? And I just hope it doesn't bite us, but knowing us, it will. So, yeah, that's all I really have to say about Jameis, outside of just incredible arm talent, great accuracy in certain moments. Like, just, yeah, I'm so happy.
Dude, I love everything about Jameis Winston. Like, I know there's a lot of people who are put off by him, but like, oh, I love him.
Well, and the other thing is like, it's shown that this team, this team plays better when they're in shootouts. Like that's our defense. What is our defense best with? Defending the pass. So if we have to force teams to keep up with us, it plays into our hand. Yeah. And that's what we did last year, and that's what happened in this game. Baltimore was playing catch up with us. Like, think about what I just said, Derek. One of the best teams in football was playing catch up with us.
Yeah.
Come on, man. Like, come on. There's some hope. There's some hope. I'll leave it there.
I have to say, and this is going to be absolutely absurd, but when you were saying the candle in the basement, all I pictured was like Kevin Stefanski trying to pull out his gun, right? Because you said we had that bullet.
Yeah.
He's trying to pull out the gun, but the gun goes off on its own, and it wasn't him like shooting it. He's like pulling it out, and it just goes off. And at the end of this basement is Freddie Kitchens standing there holding this candle with a Pittsburgh Did It shirt on, just with some stupid grin on his face. I don't ask me why.
What are you on? Like, are you okay?
Joy and happiness thanks to the Cleveland Browns finally being back in our lives.
One win and we already have lucid dreams. This is crazy. Like, okay. Just we forgot what it felt like to win and look good.
Yeah.
All right.
I know. Maybe we shouldn't win. Like, we'd start thinking crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
The ghosts of Browns past coming back to haunt us.
All right. Well, let's move on. All right. So let's talk about play calling here. So obviously it was reported earlier in the week, not only were we getting a quarterback change and Jameis Winston was going to be the starter, we also saw that Kevin Stefanski was handing over play calling duties to John Dorsey. No, not
Ken
John
Dorsey.
Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. I'm like, I'm like lucid now. Anyways, John Dorsey was the old GM. Jesus. Okay. Ken Dorsey. Kevin handed off the play calling responsibilities to Ken Dorsey. So, here's what I'll say, right? Is in terms of the impacts it had. In terms of the impacts it had, Derek is losing his mind.
I'm just picturing John Dorsey holding a playbook, chewing gum.
Okay. Derek's high off of victories right now. That's Derek's high off victory. All right, let's just keep pushing forward. But the biggest difference that I noticed today when it came to that switch, because it really wasn't anything different from what this offense was doing last year. Heavy play action, taking shots deep. It was a lot of that. The biggest difference today was the offensive line, the play along the offensive line, in particular in pass protection and in the run game. I thought they were pretty good too. They were looking like their last year form, and I attribute that to Kevin Stefanski. All right, so why I attribute this to Kevin? First things first. Hats off for having the balls to put Jowon Jones at left tackle. Hats off. I would not have done that. I'll be honest. I don't get me wrong. I am no Jed Wills fan, but Jowon Jones this year, I mean, I said he was like the rotating door at Walmart, like the automatic doors, like you just walk right in front of it and it opens up. Welcome to Walmart. He's been that at right tackle this year. But today he was great, and we'll get into that. But that was a ballsy decision. But not only that, but we didn't see as much of the pre-snap penalties, the offensive procedural penalties. It felt like Kevin was doing a lot more of the detail stuff. He took over a lot of the smaller details with this offense, and it showed, right? On the broadcast, it was mentioned Joel Bitonio signaled over to Kevin, like giving him like one of like essentially insinuating, hey, keep running the football, right? Now it could just be me reading too much into this, but I feel like big reason. Just this offensive line was clearly working with Kevin more. There's much better communication, much better understanding of what each other was doing, what the responsibilities were. It was so much cleaner. Everything was so much cleaner, so much better than what it had been previously. And again, a lot of that does deserve to be attributed to Jameis Winston because he did what he was supposed to do. Jameis did his job today, and that's why the offense looked good. But there were some other aspects to it as well. But offensive line play, in particular, having the balls to move DeJuan Jones to left tackle, it worked out, and I think it worked out really, really well. Ken Dorsey, I really didn't see much of anything different from what Kev would usually call, really, like from what we saw last year. The only thing I will say is Ken Dorsey may have been a little bit more bolder with some of the deep passes, like especially the game-winning touchdown to Cedric Tillman. The fact that you have a pass that almost gets picked off, and the very next play you go play action shot towards the end zone is insanity, and I love it. So hats off to both gentlemen, because both of these guys were getting a lot of flack for how this offense was looking this season, and nobody could really tell whose fault it was, right? But regardless, the quarterback change happened, and they were prepared for it. They were ready for it because this offensive line was prepped and ready. The wide receivers were prepped and ready. The tight ends were prepped and ready. The running backs were prepped and ready. The quarterback was prepped and ready. This offense looked like a professional offense again, finally. And they deserve credit for that, because that is a big stride, a big step forward from where we had been so far this year. It seems they've gotten it figured out. Hopefully they'll be able to keep it up. But I'm very, very impressed by what those two guys did. And the last thing I'll say before I pass this off to you, Derek, is, after last week, it felt like this could have gotten very ugly. We've said this. But this is exactly why Kevin Stefanski needs to stay the head coach. I don't care what happens the rest of the season, right? Actually, that's a lie. I do care what happens the rest of the season. But it's moments like this that shows you that Kevin Stefanski, whatever you feel about him, he's got a really good culture in that locker room. Because this could have gotten very, very ugly, right? We've seen ugly here, trust me. And instead, what we got was a team that came into the game 1-6 with the attitude of going 1-0, right? And that was the mentality that got us to this win. And these guys fought. And they deserved the win. They absolutely deserved it. So hats off to Kev. Hats off to Ken Dorsey. Great job today. Great job today. I was impressed.
Oh, I couldn't get my unmute button clicked. I thought it was weird. I felt very weird about the whole handing over play calling, the timing, like everything about it was just weird. But I do think that it might be what keeps possibly all three people in question's jobs at the end of the day. I think it was obviously, to the point you made, like there was a lot of elements of Ken Dorsey in there, or I shouldn't say a lot. There were some elements of Ken Dorsey in there, but at the end of the day, I mean, it was Stefanski's playbook. And, I thought I agree with you. I think he was a lot more aggressive. There was a lot more risks and shots taken versus some of the cutesy stuff, see what works stuff that we've seen from Kevin. And I thought it worked. I thought it worked very well. And, if this is what this marriage is going to look like between the two, then it's a good one. It's a great marriage. I will say what was I going to say? I thought Kevin did a lot better job as far as like managing the game, like time management, strategy, everything looked smoother. Everything looked better. And that's your job as a head coach, right? You get these guys that come in and they're offensive coordinators who were great at that level and they fail as a head coach. A lot of it is the meddling and a lot of it is the trying to do too much. And I think for Kevin, hopefully this is a learning part, right? This is something he can learn from and realize, okay, like I can still have my offense. Like it's still his offense, but he doesn't have to be the one who's like, okay, this is what we're going to run. Also, okay, how many men do we have on the field? Okay, what's the time? What's this? Like he can strategize from a different perspective. And I think it helped out a lot. Now, to your point, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, yeah, he was able to, focus more on the details of the game.
Yeah.
The small bits of the game that matter the most.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. But as far as the left tackle change, yeah. Wow. Crazy. It's almost like this should have been done a long time ago. But again, I mean, to your point, like it took them not really having a choice to do it. And wow, look at this. It works. But yeah, I think that this is, it's definitely a positive for sure heading into these next couple games. I am interested to see how much of it blends, right? I said there was a little bit of Ken Dorsey mixed in. Does it become more Ken Dorsey? Does it become less? Like who knows? That's all yet to be determined. But to your point, I do credit the majority of this offensive success on Jameis Winston, because the play calling and those sorts of things, we've said it, don't care if people don't believe us, whatever, guys have been open. And I'll give a shout out to in the Browns community. Jake Burns did a film breakdown specifically last week of plays where the Browns had Jerry Jeudy running a mesh concept over the middle, wide open with a touchdown in front of him 60 yards away. Deshaun didn't hit it. They knew that, and they went back to it later on in the game. Same thing. The DB did not. He did pass off, but I think I have to watch it again. But point being, 2 times in that game, you had huge plays at bare minimum. Like I'm talking 40, 50-yard gains. And it simply comes down to execution. Like coaches can't do it for you. You got to go execute on the field. And Jameis today, he did that to the highest level. And key point is getting the ball out quickly. At an NFL level, you got to read, react, get it out. Read, react, get it out. Jameis Winston did that at a very high level today. So while I do credit Kevin, I do credit Ken. I thought he did a good job. I think for me, and again, I don't want to overreact because it's easy to overreact after a game like today, but I do credit Jameis for a lot of this, and I would say at least 60% of this offensive turnaround is because of Jameis Winston. So we'll see. I mean, we'll see how it goes going forward. A lot of this is proven, right? And I don't know if this is where you want to segue next. We can if you want to. If not, that's fine. But like what I mentioned with Cedric Tillman last week, of like, okay, cool, awesome, you had one great game, do it again, and he did. Like that's what we need with this offense as a whole. So,
yeah, well said. I mean, like, yeah, let's talk about these receivers, right? Because Cedric Tillman, man, it's so nice to just see a guy live up to the potential and the hype that we had for him. And it was not looking good early this year. It was, oh boy, another Andrew Berry wasted wide receiver draft pick, another bust. Like, oh gosh, like, he had that one drop. It was like a 4th down, hit him right in the chest. I can't remember what game it was. It might have been the Giants. I can't remember, but anyway, and now you see him as a prominent figure in this offense, dude, this guy's a baller. This guy's a baller. And at a bare minimum, I'm thankful that we have Jameis Winston in there to get the most out of this guy, because it's clear, like, he is very capable of being our X receiver. Like, we were talking about going into the offseason with the need to sign T. Higgins. Are we really feeling like we are desperate for him now? Like, I mean, you still might feel like, hey, like, you know, it's a little too soon to be saying that, and I agree with you. It is still too soon. But what you're seeing from this guy right now, like, man, like, he's everything we were hoping we were going to get. And I remember when we first took him, I remember how devastated you were that we didn't get Jalen Hyatt. He went the pick before us to the Giants because you wanted us to trade up for Jalen Hyatt because that's who you were really high on. I remember this. Come on. I remember this.
Let me chime in here because we need to put this into context.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted Jalen Hyatt strictly because of his speed. Was I negative on the Tillman pick? No. I loved Cedric
I know
Tillman.
you like Cedric Tillman, yes.
Yeah.
So, but
partially, and while I have it for 1 second, I have just one quick nugget to throw in here. Do you remember what I said about his average depth of target at Tennessee, Tristan?
Oh, wasn't it like 15 yards or something like that?
Yes, exactly. It was like 14.8, something like 15 yards average depth of target. Throughout his time in Cleveland prior to these last couple weeks, it has been like 10, 9. Like, we've been trying to use him up close. Look what happens when you throw him the deep ball.
Dude, he is he's amazing at it. Like, Eddie Jackson, I think, is going to have nightmares of Cedric Tillman for the rest of his life because he just put that man
Njoku too.
Yeah, honestly, like he's probably contemplating retirement tonight. Like, seriously, it was that bad. Like, I mean, Eddie Jackson at his best was a great football player, and I actually wanted him in Cleveland at one point. But man, he Cedric Tillman got him, and David Njoku got him. Very, very good. So, but yeah, I mean, he's turning into the guy that we thought we were gonna get, and he's improving. Like, last week was good. Like, it was good. This week was way better. Like, way better. You saw, like, wide receiver 1 level potential from that guy this week. Yeah. Where can he go from here is the question. Can he keep this up? Because if he can, man, he might alone make it so that way this team can stay competitive. Because if we have to drop a bag on a wide receiver in the offseason, it's going to make some things a little bit harder. But if he's able to keep this play up, we won't need to do that. We won't. And it's just so exciting. Another wide receiver I wanted to point out, because we'll get to other guys as well, but another guy I want to go right to is Elijah Moore. Gotten a lot of flack since being here, right, because of the trade. People always say we traded a second-round pick for him. No, we swapped second and third-round picks for him. Completely different, but regardless. He hasn't lived up to all of the hype since being here. He's had moments where he's looked really good, but oftentimes when he looked like he was starting to get going, he'd either have like an injury, a quarterback change, or something. Something would go against him. And now he looks like a legit player. He looks like a legit player with Jameis Winston. Late in the game, the ball didn't go to David Njoku. It didn't go to Jerry Jeudy. And outside of one, maybe 2 balls, it didn't even go to Cedric Tillman. That ball went to Elijah Moore. So what does that tell you? That tells you that Jameis Winston sees this guy and sees that there's something there. And it's something he can rely on, right? He can rely on this guy. What is it? I don't know. Maybe it's just the way that he runs his routes. It works really well with Jameis or something like that. Who knows, right? But that's the Elijah Moore. Like, the Elijah Moore we saw the past 2 weeks has been the Elijah... actually, let me correct myself. Elijah Moore we saw later in the game last week and all of this game was Elijah Moore that we were hoping we were going to get when we first traded it for him. He has been nothing short of spectacular. Derek, do you know how many targets Elijah Moore got today?
I know precisely, and I know how many yards he got too.
Yeah. Well, I'll say the targets because he got 8 receptions for 12 targets, Derek. 12.
Yep.
Unbelievable. My God.
And let's throw it in there while we're giving him credit.
Go ahead.
85 yards.
Wow. 85 yards.
85 yards. And what's crazy?
On 8 receptions, Derek. Oh my God.
And what's crazy is he's the number 2, and the number 3 is right on his tail with 3 less receptions.
Yeah.
So
this was, just an incredible game. Incredible game from Elijah Moore. He really stepped up to the plate. And again, he's another guy. Where does he go from here? Because if he's able to repeat this, man, all of a sudden this receiving core looks lethal. Like, it looks lethal. And especially when you factor in David Njoku, like, man. Jerry Jeudy, I felt like for the opportunities that he did get today, I thought he made the most of them. He had some really great plays. You were talking about that mesh concept. He had a crosser, and he beat his guy, and he looked like he was going to take he looked like he was going to take it to the house, but unfortunately he stepped out. But he's getting open and he's getting the football, right? Like that's what we're seeing now, and we've been seeing this, right? Because Jerry Jeudy can create separation. He is a good wide receiver. Man, I can't wait to see what we can get from him for the rest of the year with James Winston. And then David Njoku. David Njoku has completely stepped up to the plate.
Yeah.
Amari Cooper was traded, and everybody turned their eyes to David. And last week had some really great moments, had some not so great moments. And this week he stepped up. Man, he was fantastic. That touchdown grab, man. Oh my goodness, that was just so impressive. And the one that he had last week from Jameis too was even more impressive and insane. I can't wait. Those four guys. I can't wait to see what we get from them the rest of the year. It feels like the sky is the limit for all 4 of them. It really does. Like, any given game, one of them can go off for like 150 yards or something like that. Like, it feels like that right now. And again, it does fall under the quarterback, because we wouldn't be able to do this without the stability at quarterback that we have now. Hopefully he's able to keep it up too. But that's all I have to say for the receiving game. I'll let you kind of reply. What were your thoughts on the receivers in this game?
So I'm going to start backwards and work my way up. So I just went top 4. Njoku had 5 receptions today for 61 yards. And I just want to say, David Njoku is somebody that I'm not willing to walk out the door ever. Like, never. Until he flat out sucks, I am not letting him leave. I don't care. Keep him hostage, whatever. Pay him whatever. The dude is a freak. David Njoku is an absolute freak. And I know he didn't have a multiple touchdown game or anything crazy, but man, what he does on that football field, like, even if it's just converting on like a 15-yard catch, like David Njoku, I said this with Amari Cooper in his time here, that we don't appreciate Amari Cooper enough. I feel the same way about David. Like, David Njoku is, and I said this last year, he was playing like the best tight end in football. Obviously, this year has been rough, but the stuff that you saw today was just the Chief being the Chief. I mean, he is a freak. He is an absolute freak, and I'm so excited that he is. I know he's gotten older, but he's still on the younger side, and he's still as freakishly gifted as he is. Because, man, when you think long term, right? and you bring in a young rookie quarterback, you bring in somebody who's younger, and you want to see, like, okay, who are their guys? David Njoku is someone that you can't overshadow how valuable he is to have on your team. Elijah Moore, again, I said 8 receptions on, you said 12 targets, 85 yards. Elijah had a great day today. Elijah looked like a really good receiver. Now, I will say this, and fair or unfair, I am treating Elijah Moore like I am Cedric Tillman, of I need to see the consistency, and I think that's more than fair. For me personally, and these are discussions we're going to have at the end of the year, but for me, Elijah Moore is a free agent. I personally wouldn't bring him back unless he starts just blowing up. I don't think you consider it. That's just me personally, and this is where we will probably disagree given our history at this position. I would more so say you draft a guy and have that. There's a couple guys in particular that I have on my mind with that. Again, that's much later discussion in the future. But yeah, Elijah's playing great. Elijah's playing very, very well right now. Just want to see it consistently. And then Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Jeudy had 5 receptions today for 79 yards. Almost 80 yards on 5 receptions. Like, he had himself a day, and I love it. I love it that Jerry Jeudy is so hated for no reason, because he is such a talented football player. Like, his skill set is not just a guy. Like, it's not. And I think you're going to see that over the next half of the season. You are going to see a guy who is a gifted wide receiver. And Tristan, between him and Tillman, I feel very confident in those two with David. And then, like I said, my vision would be, okay, you can fill in receiver with a rookie. Or if we see what we have in Jamari Thrash, like, we can fill that spot with someone else. But between those two, you have your big physical receiver who can do more than just that, and you have Jerry Jeudy, who's your route runner, has speed. Like, it's a great mix of styles. And I'm pumped for Jerry. I can't wait to see what he does. Tillman, this is the one where it's like, I'm shocked that we're at where we're at with Cedric Tillman, not because of his talent, but it's more so like there's just been an explosion. Like, Cedric Tillman, he's always had this talent. And that's why I brought up, like, coming out of the draft, when we picked him, I was thrilled. Like, I watching what he did at Tennessee, there was a lot on tape to make you just like, okay, this might be something here. And go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, I can't help but sit here and think, like, is he going to be the receiver that, like, ends up making the Andrew Berry can't draft receivers crowd shut up?
Yeah.
Like, that's where I'm going with this. Like, can he do that?
Cedric Tillman, Michael Hall Jr. might save Andrew Berry's job. Like, legit.
Yeah. We'll get
legit.
Mike Hall. Wow.
Oh, yeah. But with Tillman, 7 receptions, 99 yards, 2 touchdowns. After having an 8 reception, what did he have last week? 80-some yards. Listen, man, I'm not saying he's a wide receiver 1. I'm not saying he's perfect. But, dude, if he can be R.T. Higgins, if he can be a guy who's going to give you a consistent production. What did I say last week? I'm not asking for 80 every week. But if you can give me 50, 60 every week and just be consistent, that's what we need. And, man, Tristan, if I would have told you prior to this game, if I would have told you that Jameis Winston's throwing 334 yards, 3 touchdowns, and Cedric Tillman is going to have 99 yards, 2 touchdowns, Elijah Moore's going to have 85 yards, Judy's going to have 80 yards, and Njoku's going to have 61, you would say we're all smoking crack. Because the way that this offense has been, throughout this year to what it was today is not even remotely close. And I know we're going to shift gears to the defense. We're already at an hour and 20 minutes here. But, you know, when you look at the offense as a whole, like Chubb had 16 carries, 52 yards. Foreman had 5 for 26. You didn't do a whole lot in the rushing game. The Browns had, I wrote it down. Where did I write it down? Did I not write it down? Yeah, I did. The Browns had 80 rushing yards to the Ravens' 124, but the Browns had 321 passing yards to, 334 passing yards to the Ravens' 263. So, I mean, it's great, and I feel much better evaluating this team and thinking, okay, even if this year is completely out of hopes, going into next year, who can we expect to be contributors? And where can we go with this? Where can we go as far as evaluating the skill position? Because Tristan, listen, I was going into the end of the year thinking, all right, we might legit need 3 new receivers because that's how bad we were looking. Now I'm going into it saying, hey, you can draft a kid and, you know, like I'll throw a name out there. For me, the 2 Oregon kids, if the Browns could get one of them, Tez Johnson, Evan Stewart, throw them into this as a Elijah Moore replacement or somebody like that, boom. Like, that could be great. We're in a much better spot right now than we were 2-3 weeks ago, or even a week ago. So, I will leave it at that. Do you have anything you want to add before we move to the defense?
Yeah, so there's one other topic on the offense I wanted to talk about. We'll be pretty quick with it because we kind of touched on it. But last thing I'll say is, so apologies, I was on my phone a little bit there. I have something I'm going to talk about with Mike Hall when we get there. And it's going to be very, very interesting and intriguing. But I'll save it for then. But last topic before we move on to this defense, offensive line today. Kind of touched on him a little bit, but I just want to take another moment to talk about Jowon Jones, because what he did today was outstanding. I mean, we were talking in the offseason about, hey, do we see what this guy looks at left tackle this year, right? And this year he's been absolutely just ragged on, right? Because guys have just been getting around him way too easily. And you see what he did today, and outside of maybe a couple of pre-snap penalties, like, he was great today. He was fantastic. Like, that's the Jowon Jones that if we can get on a regular basis, like, he might be the franchise left tackle for the rest of his career, however long that ends up being. Like, because that's the potential that this guy has, right? And we saw that year one. Like, he put TJ Watt in the dirt. Like, TJ Watt didn't get anything on him. And that's one of the premier edge rushers in the NFL. Just, came into this year, just wasn't good enough. Was not good enough. And then he gets like a week or so off, and he's put in at left tackle, right? And a harder job to do, and a job that he hadn't done at the NFL. And he steps up to the plate and delivers like that against the Ravens, who are notorious for getting pressure like crazy. Like, I mean, the only fault I can say, and I don't even know if it's particularly his fault, because I gotta go back and look at the All-22, but there was the strip sack from Kyle Hamilton. Was that Jowon Jones' assignment and he just missed it, or because I couldn't tell on the initial replays. So I'll have to look back on that, right? But all things being said, played amazing today. Offensive line in total played really, really well today, especially when we talk about the run game. I thought that they were fantastic in the run game. This running game looked like the old Browns running game. And Nick Chubb, I thought, looked pretty solid too. So All the running backs, I think, came in today and did a job. I was happy with all of them. So, yeah, that's all I really have left to say about the offense. I'll let you say your final thoughts before we move on to this defense.
No, just with the offensive line, I completely agree. I mean, it's same approach that you got to take with Tillman and Moore and even Jameis. Like, I'm gonna need to see some consistency with Jowon before I'm gonna feel comfortable about that. But I think, and I don't want to open this can of worms because we're already an hour and a half into this, but as these next couple weeks shake out, we're going to have to really take a second look at evaluating this offensive line for the future, and more so of like, okay, who is staying and who is going to be starting next year? Because we had mentioned, like, we might need 4 new starters. We might need... Now that's starting to look a little bit less. That's starting to look like, okay, Wyatt Teller's playing better. Jowon looked good at left. And again, not getting into that, but just something to note for the future of like, okay, maybe it's not as bad as we thought. But
yeah, definitely. And what matters most is we have to see what we can get on a consistent basis. But for me, it's not a shock because this offense was able to go back to what they do the best, and all of a sudden everybody else looks a lot better. Crazy how that works.
It's a wild concept.
Wild concept, yeah. Anyways, let's move on to this defense. So I was telling you that I was researching something about Michael Hall, right? Because I wanted to see how crazy would this be. So, Derek, Jared Verse, the edge rusher for the LA Rams, is currently the odds-on favorite to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. He currently has 17 solo sacks. Jesus, wow, that'd be pretty impressive, huh?
I was
solo
about
tackles.
to say, what do you mean Defensive Rookie of the Year? How about just MVP?
MVP of the league, yeah.
Yeah. Which I love Jared Verse, by the way. I was a big fan of his.
17 solo tackles, 2.5 sacks, 1 forced fumble. That's his stats currently. Derek, is it crazy to think that if Michael Hall was able to replicate what he did today, he has a chance at NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year?
Yeah, it's crazy. No, I'm just kidding. If he plays as well as he did today, I mean, who knows? Because here's the thing. I don't want to jump ahead of you, but I'll just throw this real fast. Mike Hall, kill me. Say whatever you want. He played better than Myles Garrett did today. Like, there's a real argument that he had more of an impact than Myles Garrett. And that's not to take away from Myles. Don't take that as me saying Myles Garrett was terrible today. That's not it. I'm just saying the impact of the interior pass rush that Mike Hall had and the ability. Tristan, he damn near chased Lamar down a couple of times. And listen, I know, like, I've wanted Mike Hall for a long time, right? At Ohio State, again, what I talked about coming into the draft, fast, aggressive, good technique. Like, this guy's legit. He's legit. Now, off the field, say what you want about him as a person, but we're talking strictly on the field. The dude is a great football player. He is a great football player. And when you added a guy like that to a defensive line with somebody like a Myles Garrett, how could that shake out? And when you have times that, you know, Myles is being asked to do a lot more than maybe he is necessarily able to do at that moment in time, you have a Mike Hall. And I think that's what we saw today. We saw a glimpse of the future of a guy who can bring you a significant enough impact from the interior pass rush to be that 1B to Myles Garrett from the inside. Which, if we have that luxury, and you have an oboe which obviously right now we have Za'Darius, and who knows what's going to happen long term with Za'Darius. When you have speed combined with the interior, combined with the elite freak of Myles Garrett, boy. So, I mean, to your point, I know I said I was going to be quick, and here I am rambling, but to your point, if Mike Hall has the types of games that he had today, combined with more of a freak day from Myles Garrett, that his numbers are only going to go up. So,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he really impressed me today. I mean, the pressure that he was able to generate, man. I know, like, when we first drafted him, I said to you, I was like, you know, it sounds crazy to say this, but he kind of reminds me of like Aaron Donald. Like, he's got that kind of, like, smaller guy, but insanely fast and great technique, powerful, right? My question was, could he bulk up a little bit more while also keeping the same speed? That was my question. I mean, what you saw from him today was insane. Like, I mean, that's somebody that's a game changer on that D-line. An absolute game changer. And, man, Jim Schwartz has got to be licking his chops right now, because you got an offense now that's finally threatening in the passing game and able to score some points. What's this defense going to look like when we're up on a team by 2 scores and they have to pass the football and running is not an option? Oh my gosh. Michael Hall, Myles Garrett, Darius Smith, Obo Okoronkwo, Isaiah McGuire, Shelby Harris, Mo Hurst, they're all going to be teeing off. All right. This is going to be, yeah, exactly. Like, it's really going to be something special if we can get to that point. And again, it does come down to the quarterback play and the play of the offense, but what I saw today looks sustainable. That's what it looked like to me, and we've seen it work before, so not too long ago either. So yeah, this defense looks great. Another player that we wanted to point out, back-to-back weeks, MJ Emerson, outside of like a couple of plays, really stepped up, especially considering, you know, ended up having Denzel go out and towards the end of the game pretty much having to lean on him entirely, and I thought he stepped up and played fairly well. He certainly was not a liability today. And yeah, I thought that when he needed to step up, he did. So hats off to MJ, because at the start of this year, it was looking really, really bad, but he's turned it around. He's that guy that we had last year. And I couldn't be happier for him, because ever since he's gotten to Cleveland, he's been amazing. And we were talking last offseason about how in a year from then, like from last offseason, so this coming offseason, he was going to be the number one priority, extending him, right? And now it feels like that is still going to be the case, because he is still that guy.
Yeah, I think it's, again, the topic of this whole team is consistency, right? With some of these pieces on this team, like, you just want to see consistency. And with Emerson, like, that's the same thing. He struggled early on. It started to flip. Okay, now he's starting to stack. Good game, good performance after good performance. And, you know, we're heading, and this is why, in the grand scheme of things, and we talk about, like, the draft, where we're going to be at, this is partially why I'm still confident, almost as a negative, that we will still be picking higher up, is just the strength of schedule. Like, I know we just beat the Ravens, but every game's going to be tough in its own way. And, you know, when you're looking at a guy like Emerson, it's like, okay, this is year 3. Like, okay, like, you've been really, really good. Is this what you are? And, struggling the first part of the season, now coming out playing very well, I think we're getting a better idea that he is who he is. And if that is the case, and we can lean on him more, especially given Denzel. Like next week, Denzel most likely going to be out. Quentin Johnston needs to be matched up with Emerson. I think that's a perfect matchup for the type of player that he is. Right? You have Vlad McConkey and, Greg, Cam Mitchell, right? We need to see going forward just the same thing. Consistency. And, especially having a guy like Thornhill back, and if he can be somewhat of what we need him to be, this defense is in a good spot for sure. And again, what you mentioned, and I've said it time after time, it's this. Offense and defense works together. And I think a big portion as to why this defense was as good as they were today, they weren't on the field the whole game. So, yeah, I think that's all I have to say on the defense.
Yeah, so I only had a couple things left. Greg Newsome did not look great today. I still have faith that he'll turn it around. I really do. But I also wouldn't fault if we ended up dealing him or something like that. He's just not been good enough, quite frankly. Especially considering the fact we picked up his 5th year. It's tough because I really liked Greg Newsome coming out of Northwestern. I thought that he was pretty good his first couple of years. It just isn't working right now. Again, he's got the talent. We've seen him at his best. He's just not at his best right now. Like I'm wondering if he's like playing hurt or something like that, because he was never this bad, and I just hope he can figure out a way to turn it around, because I know that there's a good football player still in there. So let's see what he can do. But my last note was just that D-Hop pulled it out today. Had the one field goal that absolutely rattled the post or the upright, but outside of that,
That was funny.
That was very funny. But you know what? He stepped up. He stepped up, and we needed him today, and we got him. He's had a really shaky start to the year, but so is the rest of this team. So I think everybody from this point forward, it's a clean slate. Go 1-0 every week and see what we can get.
Yeah. The only other thing I'll add to this whole thing is I said I had to watch the game on my phone, and thanks CBS, by the way. But when that hit the post, all I heard, was like the announcers, and then all of a sudden just dong, and I was like, jeez. So, but it went in. It went in. So, but 29-24, Tristan, the Browns beat the Ravens.
Who would have thought that the Ravens would have taken the lead twice in this game, in the fourth quarter, and both times we would come back and win?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, today was the turning point, in my opinion. I think today was the next chapter of this team. Like, we are leaving the past in the past, and you know what I'm referring to. And we're moving on into what do we have, what do we need, what are we? And I think today was a good starting point for answering those questions. And those questions are going to remain. I mean, that's not a 1 week thing. That's a 3 week, 4 week, 5 week. But as we get closer to the off season, depending on where this team is at, those are the questions that need to be addressed. And we're in the points right now of figuring out those answers. So Listen, this was much needed. This
Yeah.
was much needed. You know, again, with the fan base, everything that happened last week, and then, you know, with the terrible passing of Jim Donovan and that whole thing, and then having this, right? This is the uniting part. This is the uniting moment. Again, that turning of the page onto that next chapter of this is the next. We are here. The next is here. Now, what is it going to be? That's where we're at.
Yeah. Fantastic question, Derek. Yeah. Again, just to reiterate, we needed this one. We needed it bad. And it just feels so good to have this team play to the level that we knew that they could play at. Yeah. And for at least another week, we've got some hope, baby.
Oh, I can't wait.
You've got some positivity.
I can't wait for Ken Carmen tomorrow. Super Bowl, Super Browns, baby. Let's go. Let's go. We're
Kool-Aid
back.
Mafia, stand up. G.
There we
Bush,
go.
baby. No. But honestly, the craziest thing is maybe the Miz is right.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Listen. All I'm saying is the Miz so far is not wrong.
No, yeah. Which, for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, he said we're going undefeated the rest of the year and we're going to the Super Bowl. So
He said it on the Rich Eisen podcast or his show. Sorry.
Yeah. I whatever it's worth, this should not be the case. But for those of you who do not understand, Cleveland Browns football determines how the week goes. Like, are we going to
Yes.
be pissed off the whole week? Are we going to be frustrated the whole week? Thank you, God. Thank you, God. We're going into a week where I don't have to feel depressed and sad about the burden of this football team. Like, we, hey, again, this is the day the Lord made. We're going to rejoice and be glad in it. And listen, this team, my AirPods just decided to do a kickflip. This team put something on the field for the first time all year that we can be proud of and happy. Go Browns! Let's go.
Go Browns. All right. Y'all have a good night. And we'll talk to you on Sunday.
Hopefully we're happy the next time we talk to you. Goodbye.